If we look at this word here, we have an act, and a Patriot Act that was put through and approved recently by our federal corporation in the District of Columbia, the government of the District of Columbia, 10 square miles. And they put that through, and it really caused a lot of concern in Congress and the Senate and everything, or so they showed concern, and waiting to see how people would react to it. And then there was a Roman numeral 2 that came after it, that came out. So anyone that is this word here and calls themselves this name is under this act, is agreeing to contract with that act that has been put out. So we need to be careful, need to be cautious about what words we're calling ourselves. So right here we have this right here. Let's look at something. I also call myself stateless because I'm sealess, S-E-E-L-E-S-S. I may have coined that term, I don't know, but I'm stateless, that's for sure. And so this side over here, we have a matrix that's a debt monetary system. We have the debtor side and we have the creditor side over here. Okay? All of this that's in this square here in the world, this is the world, the whole thing is all about corporate fictions. Everything in this square is fiction. It's not real. It's perception. And if you saw the movie The Matrix, you know that as they went in there, they thought they were in there. And actually what happened in there could really affect their living soul body. If they died in the Matrix, they believed that they were really dying and their heart stopped. If they got socked or hit, you saw the blood running down. Okay? But they weren't getting punched out in the real realm, in the reality realm, only in the fictional realm. So we really understand the power of the mind with this. All right, over on this side, we have a mini version of what you're looking at here. You have the debtor here, and you have the creditor here. All right? So you have the debtor and the creditor. Over here you have the creditor. And what's going on here? This over here is really the crown as an agent for the Vatican. The state of the Vatican. All right? And don't get me wrong, I am not anti-Catholic. I'm not anti-Protestant. I'm not Protestant because I'm not protesting. And as a sovereign, born a sovereign, created by the great sovereign of the universe, the one supreme being, the Almighty, the creator of the seen and the unseen, the visible and the invisible, I was created in His image and in His likeness. And if you study out the scriptures, you will notice that there was taught to us by our Savior that God, this term that we use, God, is a spirit. And those that worship God must worship Him in spirit and truth. Now, whether or not you believe in this, that doesn't matter. For these purposes, what I'm saying is we go back to the beginning, and if people believe in the creation story, we see that God created man, male and female, in His likeness and in His image. Well, it stands to reason that if He's spirit, then He created us in His image and in His likeness as spirit beings. So I ask people, is God in the universe? I say no. I say the universe is in God. And that does a number on our finite minds. Let's go back to this. Okay? Debtor and creditor. In this system over here, let's just take this country here. We have someone up here that goes by this title. And that is in a 10 square mile called D.C. And that's a government. There is a government of the District of Columbia. You go on the website, type in Government of the District of Columbia, and you'll see the website pops up. That 10 square mile area is the government. And that corporation, it's a federal corporation that's in that 10 square miles, has brought all of us through the birth certificate. I'm not going to go into a lot of that because most of you understand this, and if you don't, start going to some websites, put in the word redemption, put in the word, there's some very good websites. Go ahead and give me some, does anybody know? Some websites. BuildFreedom.com in regards to words. Look at language of freedom and the anatomy of freedom. Go to AmericansBulletin.com, or maybe it's .org.
TheAwareGroup.com.
TheAwareGroup.com. There's many of them out there. And you can start gleaning from many of these groups and their websites. You can start gleaning from them about the history, the true history of this country and the true history of the world. So anyways, but if we look at this, what does this party here think he is? Whoever's standing in that office. The creditor, right? But he's really the debtor. He's the debtor to whom? To the big creditor over here. The big creditor over here, by treaty and by contract, has this whole US of A, all caps, in debt to this side. And we know what happened in 1933. All the gold was taken. Franklin D. Roosevelt, he put out an executive order. You turn in all your gold. This was after the gold rush, etc. And everybody did. Everybody gave up their gold to get pieces of paper. And he said, well, these pieces of paper, they have precious metals back in them, and you can go in and you can exchange it for precious metal, like silver. Up until 1972, you could take in a U.S. dollar, and if you went into a bank and you asked for a silver dollar, if they had it, they'd give it to you. Try doing that today. You can't. So there's no intrinsic value metal or no intrinsic value anything that is backing these pieces of paper with ink on them. So what gives it the value? What gives it the value is the full faith of the people. The full faith of the people of the world that use this. And we call this system here the world. Okay? This is the world system. So over here, if you understand generally accepted accounting principles, if not, go get Accounting for Dummies at Barnes & Noble or some other bookstore and start understanding how to balance an account, a statement. And when you start understanding this, and I'm not an expert on this, but I have a limited knowledge of it, but I do understand that you cannot take a debt instrument with one line through it, not two lines. It's an S with one line through it. If I owe you $100, I cannot pay that with another debt instrument. A debt instrument is what? In banking terminology, the word note means promise to pay. So you look at what we call United States dollars, and the top it says note, Federal Reserve note. By the way, for those of you that don't know the Federal Reserve banking system, they will tell you this. They have a brochure. They will tell you themselves. It is a private banking system. This is one of the only, in fact, the only private bank in the world that acts as a central bank for a country that I know of. But I could be wrong. There could be other ones out there. So that word note means promise to pay. So what are we operating over here in? This is what we call the money of account side. This is the money of exchange side that has intrinsic value over here. Gold, silver, other precious metals, as well as our exemption. And I'll get to that a little bit later. All right? So over here, what do you have to do to balance this off? All right? This is the plus side, and this is the minus side. The only way to pay a debt is with intrinsic value wealth or money of exchange. You can't pay a debt with a debt. Because if you do, what happens is if you put another $100 here that is a debt note, promise to pay, and what do you have? You have $200. And it keeps driving that deeper and deeper and deeper until you are just a super debtor. All right? So how do we get out of this? Well, there was something called the House Joint Resolution, June 5th, 1933, and they never told us how to get out of it. So anytime that we try to discharge this, really the Congress is supposed to discharge this. They're the ones that promised, our representatives. They promised to discharge all of our debts dollar for dollar, and they don't do it. And anytime that we try to do it with this side, most of the time they dishonor, and they steal what we call our exemption. You look in Webster's, exemption means that we are not, let me see, the word exemption. If I'm exempt from something, I'm not liable for that. I am not tied to that. I'm excluded from that. All right? So the sovereigns of the world, what we call sovereigns, we are sovereign, but what the world calls a sovereign, which is a monarch, do they pay debts? Do they have debts? No. Why? The king or the queen, they are the title owner of the whole domain. True? So who pays debts to them? Who pays tribute to them? They're subjects. All right? So, getting back to this right here, let me do some red ink here so we can, this is the living soul side. All right? We have the word exemption. Exemption. Okay? What is exemption? Do you remember in the movie The Matrix? If you haven't seen it, go see it. In the movie The Matrix, how did the whole fictional robotic machine world, how did it get its energy to exist?
From human life.
From human life. They grew the babies in these big artificial wombs, and they had some type of connection there that was extracting the electromagnetic grid around our bodies, around the bodies of the living souls, the flesh and blood men and women, and they were extracting that as electricity. All right? And a lot of this whole system operates based upon electricity. If you have a battery, let's say you have a battery, and a battery has a positive pole and a negative pole. All right? And you notice that in the commercial world, they use words such as charge. You go to a store, and what do? They charge your credit card. And what do you do when you sign it? Do you know what you're doing when you sign it? You discharge it. Immediately when you put your wet ink on that little piece of paper, you have given them your exemption. That's the energy that they're looking for. All right? Now, in the fractional banking system, they can take that, and if they know how to do it, they can leverage that. 10 times plus, 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 with bonds and other created instruments. All right? But definitely what they do with it is they take that and they will send it over to this side to the Department of the Treasury. Notice I didn't say U.S. Department of the Treasury. This is just the Department of the Treasury. All right? The Department of the Treasury is representing the IMF, representing the United Nations, representing the Crown, representing the Vatican. They're all the creditor side over here. And when they get any type of discharge by us, they can take that to this side over here, and they can ask for an electronic funds transfer to be wired back to credit the account of whoever we're giving them to. Because we cannot pay our debts with a debt note, a promise to pay. It's impossible. Many of these big corporations, the municipalities out here that are called corporations, they will take our debt notes. They're getting paid several times. They will take our debt notes and put it into what we call a CAFR account. C-A-F-R. And the CAFR stands for Comprehensive Annual Financial Report. Go into the internet if you'd like to research this, and just put Comprehensive Annual Financial Report, and you will start getting some information. I'm trying to remember the fellow's name that's done so much research on that.
Burian.
What's his name? Burian. What's his first name? Walter Burian. He has done excellent research on this. So the CAFR account is actually like the old banking system. And the old banking system was that any of these commercial banks out here were not allowed to loan money unless there was a compensating balance that the bank was holding by its depositors. So if they had $100 million, then they could loan that amount or a percentage of that amount, give or take, out to the commercial market. A construction company or a developer wanted to come and get a line of credit, they could loan that. And what were they doing? They were using the compensating balance account there. And the CAFR account is really just that. It's a compensating balance account in accounting that has to sit into an account and it cannot be touched. Why? Because from that compensating balance account is created debt instruments called bonds or whatever you may want, and they can do it 10 times. If they have $1 million in that CAFR account, they can have a bond of $10 million and trade it on the world bond markets. So when you get a ticket, what's going on? If you get a, let's say, $200 ticket, that goes into the CAFR account along with all the others, and the units that are in there will be used to be a compensating balance for the bonds or the fresh cut bank paper that is being traded on the world markets. That's what's going on. And so what happens is when we are trying to use what we normally call bonds, these bonds that we are supposed to be able to use, it's our exemption, we're bonded to our corporate fiction voucher. The straw man vouches for us and indemnifies us by an indemnity clause, if we have a security agreement, indemnifies us from all liability, all liens, levies, and debts. And the straw man takes that for us. The straw man vouches for us in this fictional world. So we have an account over here. It's a prepaid, unlimited credit on this side over here. And where did that come from? 1933. They took all of our lawful money, according to the Constitution. They took it all away. We have no more. If you try to go into this place here, this restaurant, and take out some silver coins and go to the cashier and try to pay in silver, they won't take it. Very rare would you find that. Very, very rare. Try paying in gold. You can't pay in gold. They want the worthless piece of paper that says promise to pay. So they take the promise to pay, and then they pay their suppliers that they buy for the produce and the meats and everything, and they promise to pay the supplier. And the supplier is the manufacturer and is promising to pay the producer, the raw material producer. And everybody's promising to pay, but nobody's paying. And what does that create? It creates a super debt system. And occasionally it gets so deep that they have to wipe it clean. There were a couple of twin towers that went down recently. And trillions, I forget how many, of these debt instruments were wiped out. How many is that? 30? 40? 40 trillion. 40 trillion were wiped out in one day. Now they get to start over again. At the end of every 70 years, the federal corporation got to wipe it out. The international bankruptcy, 70, 70, 70, from 1789 to 1999, 210 years, every single president that comes into this federal corporation agrees to keep the bankruptcy going to the crown. So when you have a bankruptcy, don't you have collateral? So what happened with the bankruptcy? Whenever the bankruptcy happened back in 1789, do we all know what happened? What happened was whenever the crown picked up the notes from France and from the Netherlands that financed the Revolutionary War for the colonialists, the crown picked them up by treaty. The King of England was the King of France. So when the colonial bank of the United States defaulted on the notes, 18 million livre, guess who picked up the notes? You are my debtors again. So since 1789, so we were really a free nation from 1776 to 1789. And since that time, anybody that has been domiciled in the District of Columbia, and that's what they do with the birth certificate, they get us to be domiciles of the District of Columbia. So we are now occupying the different states that are territories of that District of Columbia. That's why you have an occupation. People don't understand the power of words. Every time, and going back to the word recognize that I spoke of before, we use this word recognize. Oh, I recognize him. Oh, I recognize her. And what are we saying every time we say the word recognize? I contract with the Crown. I'm a subject of the Crown. And we don't understand what has happened in our language. And how do we free ourselves from this? So, this is all kind of messed up here, but let me start over again here a little bit. All right? So what's happening with our exemption? Our exemption is that we were the, and still are, we're the preferred shareholders of the United States of America, the federal corporation and all its agencies. We are the preferred shareholders, and the bodies have become the collateral for the bankruptcy. And the energy of the people, we the people have become the collateral for the bankruptcy of this federal corporation. That every time we sign our name without bicolon and without under reserve or without prejudice, sometimes people like to put UCC 1-207 or UCC 1-308 now. If we don't reserve all of our rights, we are signing as surety and guarantor for the liens and the levies of that bankrupt corporation, which makes the living soul, we're saying we're a corporate fiction, that we're that fiction name, that straw man name. So when we look at all this, how do we get out of this? If they're not going to honor this side, they're all a bunch of crooks. This is the whole banking side, including the corporations that have their banks within the corporation. You go down to something that's called the municipal court, that's a bank. Don't believe me? Go down and pay a ticket and see a line with a rope. And you have cashiers. And you go up to the teller that may say clerk or cashier, and you pay. It's a bank, but it only goes one way. It doesn't come back this way. It only goes one way. Because what they're telling us is, you are our debtor. You are our servant. Well, I contend that if we're the servant, then why don't they call us public servants? So that we can bow and scrape to our masters. If the official is called a public servant, shouldn't he be serving us? I grew up as a missionary kid in the country of Thailand. And as many countries, missionaries, the labor is very, very cheap labor, very low cost labor, and everyone has maids or servants. When you don't have electricity, or you're burning with kerosene lamps, or you may have electricity but you don't have air conditioning, and the weather is 110, 120 degrees with 100% humidity and it's not raining, you're sticking to yourself. So there's a lot of bathing going on, and at least 2 or 3 times a day. And one of the common ways that Thai people to this day greet each other is, have you had your shower yet? Have you had your bath yet? They want to make sure that you're comfortable. And it's just it's a cultural thing. But I grew up with servants. And I'll tell you, my servants never grabbed me by the neck and threw my body down, face first, into the ground, and stepped on the back of my neck or put their knee into the back of my back and bent my arms back. They would have been fired immediately. Especially if the boss of the house found out, my dad or my mom. All right? They were being paid. We also are paying our public servants. That doesn't make us debtors. That makes us, if they're being paid out of our pocket, they are our servants. They should do what we say. All right? What has happened? What has happened to this whole matrix here? All right? We are really standing outside this matrix. And we live outside this matrix over here. And I'm going to get to, real quick here, I'm going to get to how if they're not going to honor our exemption, if they're not going to honor our unlimited prepaid credit on this side, then how do we get them to honor it? And Walter and Joe and forerunners like Barton and forerunners like Roger and forerunners like Rice and forerunners, there's many forerunners out there that have paid the price to lay the foundation to help us come to what the Spirit of the Almighty is revealing to us today. Okay? And so here we are out here, male or female, created in the image and the likeness of the Almighty. We're spirit beings walking around with souls, mind, will, and emotions, and we created everything.
David, give me 1 second.
Yeah.
I've got to change the tape.
We're changing the tape here. Okay, we're getting back here, and someone asked me what to write across the top right of your document, and you have a $1 stamp there. Remember, we are the creators of the creation fiction system. Which is greater, the creator or the creation? Creator. Can a fiction create itself?
No.
It's the creation. Can it speak? Can it walk? Can it talk? Can it eat? Can it sleep? Nothing. It can't do any of that. Can it answer? No. We have created it. We, the people, the living souls, have created this whole fictional system. That's why we are the preferred shareholder. We own it. It can't exist without us. So going back to this, okay, just go on and hold that question. Going back to this, somebody asked what to write across. You write across by colon, because I am not the name, by colon, with the given name spelling, which is the upper lowercase autograph, connected, if you have two, connected with a hyphen. If you have one, that's fine. You have one given, listen to the words, one given appellation. I'm not using the word name, I'm saying one given appellation. Why do I stress one? Because I am not two, I am one. Joshua said one time, if your eye be single. And what is the opposite of that? Evil. I don't want to be evil. I don't want to be unrighteous. Because the righteous rule over the unrighteous. That's how it's designed. So anyone that's two, anyone that's doing business as with a DBA is not one, they're two. That's why I ask, may I have your name, please? For the record, upon your oath of office, may I have your name, please? What's he going to say? Or she going to say? You call me Judge Smith. Is that one or is that two? That's two. They know what this is. They know what it is. All right? So underneath we have with the autograph. We're signing without prejudice above with the small letters. Just print. Very small. A lot of times I'll try to blend it in so it won't stand out. You don't want to draw attention. You want to live at peace with all men if you can. But if they ask me what it is, I just say that my counselor has told me this is the way to sign. Who is my counselor? All right. I put a copyright symbol because I've copyrighted copy claim. All right. So I put this across at an angle across the postage stamp and $1 postage stamp, making you the postmaster. This is your document in commerce, in the sea of commerce. It's a bill of lading, whatever the document is. No, this is not the document here, but whatever the document is. And you put a flag up at the top left, whatever flag you want to fly. I suggest that you fly a flag that signifies some type of sovereignty. The Hague Convention, The Hague in the Netherlands, has written to the Republic of Texas and said, we cannot rule on any matters of the Republic of Texas because the Republic of Texas is a sovereign nation. The Supreme Court of Texas, the State of Texas Corporation, has said the same thing. There is no treaty, legal or lawful treaty of annexation with the United States of America. We are an occupied nation. Occupied by the federal corporation called the United States of America. Enforced by the 5th Army in Killeen, Waco area. All right? If you want to get justice nowadays, because under the War Powers Act and Trading with the Enemies Act, that was done way back, when was that, the 30s or the 40s? Whenever that was done, this United States of America corporation had to be able to justify their occupation of what they called territories. Well, this is not a territory. There's never been a treaty. This is one of the only sovereign nations, I believe it is the only sovereign nation left in the world today, that is proclaiming its sovereignty. All right? Now, it's okay to have a corporation, a huge corporation, come over the top of it. Just like you go to Austin, you find a big rotunda. And when the governor recently had the president of Mexico come, they were taking some photo ops, and they were standing on a big seal right in the rotunda with the Capitol building of the state of Texas over it. And what did their seal say? Republic of Texas. They're standing right on top of it. It's the foundation of where we live. We allow these corporations to come in. We don't want them to leave. We want them to just honor their oath of office, to uphold their corporate charter, to not violate the rights of the people. The Attorney General of this corporation, the state of Texas, and the Attorney General of every corporation out there, of every S-E-E, or state, those state corporations, they have someone that's called an Attorney General, and he has an oath of office to uphold the corporate charter. You know what his job duty is? One of his job duties? He is supposed to sue and go after any corporation that compels anyone to contract with a corporation. And they will do it. But you have to put it in their face and say, hey, upon your oath of office, come get these guys. Even if it's the corporation that he's working for, they have to uphold their corporate charter. They're all corporations. Okay, going back to this. We are out here, and by the way, I said here, I put my autograph, spelling properly with a hyphen to connect if there's two names. I make it one because I'm not two, I'm one. And all this is just a title. It's an appellation. Go look up the word appellation, you'll see what I'm talking about.
Are you putting your family name after that second?
Colon, family name. You can also do colon, clan of, the clan name, or you can actually write that in. You know, Rice actually says clan of McLeod. All right? The family name, that's not my name. It's not my appellation. My name is this name. And underneath I do, or behind the family name, sometimes to really protect myself, and I've copyrighted this combination as well, I put bicolon. And in that case, I always do small b, bicolon, capital M, lowercase letter e, me, comma, addressee. And let them figure out who I am. There's two buys here. The straw man name, the corporate fiction straw man name here is being signed by an authorized representative. But that's not me. And this is not me either. That's ink on a whiteboard here. That's not me any more than I pull out a picture and say, that's not me, that's a picture of me. I look in the mirror, that's not me, that's a reflection of me. So are we beginning to understand who we are? And if we say I am, we need to understand what we're saying. A very poor translation, Joe has helped me with this because he's a scholar in Hebrew, to some degree, I believe. I probably qualified that, I should say. But he has helped me understand that who I am when I say I am. Many of us have heard this term, I am that I am. We saw it in the Ten Commandments with Charlton Heston. Say I am that I am, and go tell Pharaoh that I am that I am that I am. Well, the word that means in place of. Well, what is I am? Is that present tense, past tense, or future tense? Present. Okay. Transit. In transit. Okay. What's more correct would be I will be that I will be. And I haven't talked with Joe about this, but I think even what more correct than that would be I was, I am, and I will be what I will be, or what that I will be.